Hey there, grade 7. So we've got our first math outcome that we're working on during distance learning. You'll notice at the top of the page here, I've got the kind of fraction work that we've been doing so far. Notice how the two fractions already have the same denominator. Because the denominator is the same, we can just add the top of the fraction. So 2/4 plus 1/4 equals 3/4. What this unit's going to get into is what happens if we have two fractions that have different denominators, that they have different bottom numbers. The answer is that before we add or subtract them, we have to make them have the same denominator. So underneath here, I have these two fractions. I have to make them have the same denominator. An easy way to do this is to take this entire first fraction here, and I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by this one's bottom number, so by 2 over here. So I multiply this one by 2 and this one by 2. When I multiply 4 by 2, I'm going to get 8. And multiply 5 by 2, I'm going to get 10. And this is, of course, an equivalent fraction. These two things are the same. For this fraction over here, I'm going to multiply its top and its bottom by the bottom number of the other fraction. So I multiply 5 by the top and bottom here. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. Notice that now I've got two fractions I'd be able to add together. They both have the same denominator, so we can put them together now at this point. Take a look at these two fractions here. Once again, they have different denominators. So this one here, I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by what? The answer is I'm going to use the bottom number of the other fraction, the other fraction's denominator. So I'm going to multiply this one by 4 and this one by 4. 5 times 4 will give me 20. And 7 times 4 will give me 28. Now I want to do the same thing over here to this one. I multiply the top and the bottom by the other fraction's denominator. So what I've got here is 7 times 3, which is going to be 21, and 7 times 4, which is going to be 28. Once again, both fractions now have the same denominator. This means that we can now add or subtract these fractions because the denominators are the same. Let's do one more example here. So I've got 2/3. I'm going to use the bottom number of the other fraction's denominator, as the thing I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by. So I'm going to use 8. 2 times 8 is going to be 16, and 3 times 8 is going to be 24. On this other fraction, what is the number I want to multiply top and bottom by? It is, of course, 3, the denominator of the other fraction. So 3 times 6 is going to give me 18, and 3 times 8 is going to give me 24. So now I've got fractions that, once again, I'd be able to add or subtract. So this is our first method, and your question page is going to have some questions much like this one. Now sometimes you'll come across some fractions that you're able to only change one of the two of them. So you're not going to need to change both of them. And the reason being that one of the fractions has a denominator that's a multiple of the other. So take a look at these two over here. 20 is the much bigger denominator. 5 is the smaller one. Is there a way I can multiply 5 by something to make it so it's out of 20? If I did that, then both of the fractions would already be out of 20. I'd only have to change this one, and this one would be okay the way it is. So you have to ask yourself, what can I multiply 5 by to make it 20? And the answer will come back to you. You can multiply it by 4. So I'm going to multiply this one by 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 5 times 4 is 20. Both of the denominators are now the same, so I'd be able to add or subtract these. Take a look at our second pair of fractions here. Once again, I'd only need to change one of these two fractions. Which one should I go about changing? Well, the one with the smaller denominator would probably be the one you want to change. What can you multiply 3 by to make it so it's like 15? You can multiply it by 5. So 1 times 5 gives you 5, and 3 times 5 gives you 15. And now we have, again, two fractions that have the same denominator. They have the same bottom number. Let's do one more example here. So again, I've got two fractions. This one might seem less obvious just to look at, but there might be something that I can multiply 4 by to make it 24. What is that something I can multiply by? I can multiply it by 6. So I'll just make this one into an equivalent fraction by multiplying the top and the bottom by 6. So 2 times 6 is going to be 12, and 4 times 6 is going to be 24. And you can see with this equivalent fraction, 12 to 24, that's the same as half. 2 to 4, that's the same as half. These things are still all equivalent. This one, of course, also has denominator 24, so I can now add or subtract these two fractions. One last thing that we're going to cover in the handout that you guys are working on today is the difference between proper fractions, improper fractions, and mixed numbers. So a proper fraction is like this one up here. Anytime that you have a fraction where the bottom number is bigger than the top number, or the bottom number is more than the top number, this is a normal proper fraction. So this is the kind of fractions that we're used to seeing. Sometimes the numerator, or the top number, is more than the denominator. In this case, it's because it's more than a whole. So you can see 5/4 means I have a whole pizza, 4 to 4 slices of pizza, and another 1/4 of a pizza left over. If I show it as 5/4 or 5 out of 4, then this is an improper fraction. Another way that you could show it would be by making it a mixed number. A mixed number is when you have a whole number and you have a fraction. And these two things are right beside each other. The whole number always comes first, the fraction comes after. So once again, I have a whole pizza over here, and then I have another 1/4 of a pizza over there. Notice that these two things are the same. But this one is an improper fraction because everything is in the numerator still. So it's 5 out of 4. And this one is a mixed number because it is there's one whole and there's 1/4 left over. So this is what we call a mixed number when the whole number is separate from the fraction.